They say that in the thick of World War II, a small escort destroyer vanished right at a Philadelphia pier. A greenish haze climbed around the hull, the air began to sing, and steel bulkheads seemed to hum back. Seconds later, the ship was said to have been seen in Norfolk, and then to have returned to the spot where it stood. This is the story sailors, retired mechanics, radio amateurs, and late-night hosts have passed around for decades. It outlived fashions and hardware because it taps a raw nerve. We fear invisible forces even as we secretly hope to master them. The tale is built from the same parts every time: the green glow, the crackle of electricity, mines coming undone, and a few men allegedly found fused into steel, as if flesh and plate had briefly become the same material. Such details refuse to fade, so the narrative keeps walking on its own. It is repeated, embellished, defended against doubt, and once again it sounds convincing, first of all on an emotional level. To see why the legend is so durable, go back to the 1940s. The Atlantic then was a chessboard of convoys and wolf packs. Victories came less from bravado than from discipline and technique: schedules, signals, radar, anti-submarine drills. American yards worked without pause: diesels, gantries, welding arcs, the breath of ozone. New hulls were laced with heavy cable. Coils stood on deck. Electricians measured currents and filled in logbooks. To a passerby, it looked as if the Navy were preparing a stage illusion, turning a ship into something else. The purpose was simpler: degaussing. Magnetic mines and sensors treated iron like a lighthouse. To shrink that signature, ships carried cable loops that fed current to cancel the hull's field. To the eye, nothing disappeared. To detectors, the ship became less visible. Steam and ozone, smoke and transformer hum provided a scene on which talk of fields that alter reality could easily be born. After the war, rumors found another food source: letters and fringe publications. Engineer-author Morris K. Jessup published a book about flying saucers, and readers who liked to find secrets everywhere took interest. Among the letters were long, jittery accounts from a man calling himself Carlos Allende, also known as Carl Allen. He claimed to have seen an experiment with USS Eldridge. A device was switched on, the ship vanished, flashed in Norfolk, then reappeared. The letters were thick with homely detail and read like a confession. Later, a copy of the book surfaced with eccentric marginal notes. The print run was tiny, but the legend walked on. Retellings repeated the same images: green fog, arcing cables, screams, men groan into steel. Einstein's name appeared like a password. If there was a unified field, perhaps one could fold space. Scientific words in such a setting work like special effects. They boost trust while proving nothing. Strip out the emotional spikes, and a plain audit follows. Ships of that class spent those months on trials and convoy duty. Eldridge's tracks lead to New York and Bermuda, and later to North Africa. There are no instant hops between Philadelphia and Norfolk. That doesn't make the stories impossible, but it does rob them of footing. Skeptics add that look-alike hulls invite mistakes, and memory sands its corners, filling gaps with ready-made images. Anyone who saw only welding flashes on a damp night could come away with the sense of an embodied field, a sense that would mature into a scene and a sound, the hum that supposedly bent time. Physics is less forgiving. To fold space around a hull would require fields of fantastic density. Those fields would have killed 1940s electronics and the crew long before any green gleam. Any apparatus capable of moving a macroscopic object through space-time would have left marks felt along the entire coast, compasses drifting wild, radios choking, instruments failing en masse. Contemporary records show nothing of the sort. They do show degaussing coils, current readings, and inspection forms. Reality here is prosaic, but it explains almost everything people later described as marvel. Why then does everyone love the image of men fused into steel? Because it is the perfect Gothic metaphor. It turns an engineering episode into a myth that resists rebuttal. If bodies blended with metal, the force must have been unspeakable, and arguments are pointless. In truth, shipyards have seen enough injuries that look monstrous without any fields at all. Electricity, water, and heavy machines make a trio that even hardened workers would rather not watch. A story heard at third hand can convert an industrial accident into the trace of an experiment. The legend also has cultural reasons to endure. In the post-war world, people learned that real power belonged to the invisible. Radio waves, radiation, ciphers, the atom, none of these can be touched, yet they steer the fate of states. The invisible ship fits that fear like a key fits a lock. It promises that behind the yard gate lies a simple answer. Twist a knob a little further and space itself will fold. That is why denials don't stick. One may say 100 times that Project Rainbow addressed camouflage and signatures, not teleportation, and listeners will still picture the green fog and hear the hum. To be fair, skepticism needn't kill wonder. The story is useful because it teaches us to tell craft from myth without losing respect for either. Real engineering of the 1940s is less cinematic, but it is what won the war. Degaussing means copper, math, insulation, watch stations, and boring checklists. Those boring elements saved lives, prevented detonations, and guarded ships and cargoes. They offer no green glow, only a quieter miracle, discipline that carried hulls to their destinations. The evidence propping up the legend is brittle. Letters surfaced years later. Some authors returned with clarifications, changed details, and invoked fresh memory. Independent documents with dates set firmly before the noise are scarce. In such conditions, any added line plays like a clue, even when it merely ornaments a plot. That is how urban folklore works. It convinces by rhythm and repetition, not by proof. Yet the legend is not useless. It reminds us that technology always has a human side. On every deck and in every dock, someone routed cable, checked joints, held instruments, and kept the log. Those people did invisible work, and that is precisely why ships grew less visible to minds. When we hear about green fog, we might recall the smell of wet insulation, the scratches on palms, and the watch bill that keeps the world from falling into an accident of moments. What remains after the audit is simple: a real ship, a real war, real electrical craft, and human memory that loves to embroider fact with bright images. The Philadelphia experiment is not a proven chapter of secret science. It is a case study in how a stage, smells, and sounds of war can spark a story people want to believe. Perhaps that is why it refuses to sink. It bundles a hope that beneath ordinary rust, there is a door to the impossible. Most often, though, the door opens onto coils, knife switches, and people who do their work by the book. Their work matters more than any green shimmer. It keeps hulls, not legends, afloat. And if the legend keeps coming back, it is because it offers a comforting simplicity. The world seems to run on a single switch. Real progress runs on thousands of switches managed by people cinema rarely shows, engineers and sailors. Their names seldom reach the credits, but their work makes the most important thing invisible: danger.